I'm making 3D pixel art models in Blender for my upcoming game about parasites. Here are the lessons I learned while making the biggest part so far, the Sci-Fi lab desk. Alright, so this one hurts a little bit because it can just waste so much time. But here you can see that I modeled most of the object, even down to like the sink and the actual drain. And honestly, I just didn't know where to go with the texture. When the source of truth is the texture instead of the model, it's so much easier to know how much detail, and the scaling is so much less arbitrary. I just had to restart essentially. So first of all, you'll see that the UVs aren't completely done. But apart from that, the depth in the cabinets is just not quite right. I made an effort to make like this dark light approach, which sometimes works. Here it doesn't really. And I think the contrast is the issue. But also these like top and bottom parts that are purple just really distract, and it just like kind of doesn't even look like a desk, which is kind of important. So from here, I decided to do like a complete overhaul of the texture, and I pretty much scrapped what I had. But this was really helpful in determining how detailed I wanted this front face to look. Okay, so this texture has much better color and more consistency in the texture, but here we have some unclear depth. It's not completely obvious what's happening here and how it connects to the top part. The desktop part is way too thin. I mean, it's basically just a plane. Finally, with this, the lines have like no continuation on the top here, and they actually kind of continue in a bad way. But the shape is looking a lot better, and I do like, obviously I didn't finish this part, but I do like this open space. I think it looks a lot more like a desk. I actually removed that in the future, but I thought it looked pretty good for this specific shape. So now that we have a better shape that's a little easier to comprehend, and we also have a nice amount of detail here in the front, now I'm seeing that the bottom part of this is super boring and very flat and one-dimensional, and it's hard to differentiate kind of what's going on here. Also, without a gradient or shading, the corner is basically invisible, and it just looks weird. There's no depth because, well, I haven't shaded in the depth, basically. Ah, yes, bring the color into the really boring overhang and the bottom of the model. I'm not really sure why I did this. It brings the attention to all the wrong places, to be honest. And it also kind of removes the shadow effect I have going on here at the bottom. Also, ignore that. Don't worry about that. I hadn't fixed the UVs for this part yet. Also, the top is also a placeholder because I was going to add the sink there, but just don't worry about that, okay? Don't worry. All right, so before we move on to the emission and color elements, it's time to talk about the elephant in the room. Yeah, I don't even really know what to say about this. It just, obviously this looks horrible. In the end, I've decided that the sink part is going to be like planes, like billboard planes, because number one, I can't model a faucet apparently, but also because there's so many small details and it's consistent with the Sci-Fi container, we might as well just add some plane elements here. Especially because this is a desk, and making the faucet big and bulky like this just kind of takes away from the desk, and this is supposed to be a desk. This isn't supposed to be really all about the sink, so I think making it a plane will really help. And finally, after all those mistakes, we finally end up with something that I'm actually quite happy with. We have some nice accents on the side here, some greebles, and then we connect it with the pipes here, and that'll make more sense when we put the Sci-Fi container up here. And then finally, we also have emission. Yes! It actually ends up looking better than I thought it would. There's a lot going on here, but the glowing adds a lot and makes the color pop a lot. And it also just makes it look sci-fi. So down here is actually how I did it. There's no principal BSDF because that adds the shading, and we're adding the shading with pixels. So we use these simple emission shaders, we mix them together, and then we get the material output. Now we do have this like baking thing. I was working with baking. It doesn't actually use baking though. This is just a normal emission texture. And then we have the actual base color or albedo texture. And then we just combine those. And then the emission texture gets a strength value, and that's what affects how emissive it is. Finally, also something you have to do in Blender just to be able to preview it without having to render it. You have to create this glare node. Make sure to check use nodes, and then just put the glare in and make sure to change this to bloom. There were a lot of bumps on this road to get here, but I'm quite happy with it. And oh yeah, I don't know if I've showed the back this entire time, but it's pretty much what the front is, to be honest. It's not all that exciting, but it's going to be up against a wall. And finally, this top is kind of boring, but when I have stuff on top of it, I have too much going on by like putting too many elements up here. Also, I'm going to put a sink in here later because most lab desks that I've seen have a sink in them, and I really like that aspect. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed the video or learned something, please consider leaving a like or a comment. Also, if you want to see more pixel textured sci-fi model breakdowns like this, maybe consider subscribing. I try to share my process and lessons I learned along the way, so hopefully my mistakes can save you some trouble. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.